Hi, I'm Mike Jones. I thought you might like to hear the 1798 story from the underdog's perspective. I went out and spoke to Jason Folkestad at County Fire. You're going to hear a little bit of variation on the $1.74 and whether or not that's really a good deal. Some reaction to the thank you firefighters sign, which is a bit misleading. And anyway, I talked to him for about a half an hour. Here it is. We spoke earlier on the phone. I'm Mike Jones, by the way, and you are?
Jason Folkestad.
Jason Folkestad. That's a folksy name.
Yeah, Norwegian.
Norwegian.
Yeah.
Okay. And I asked you on the phone, what's your story? Here we are. We're about a week away from an election that has a high potential of putting you out of business. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that, first of all?
Yeah, I think that would obviously be our biased standpoint for the fact that we're voting no, ultimately to stay in business. But it is a lot more in depth than that outside of this being our livelihood. We're also looking out for the community. We at County Fire have been in business since 2013. I have been on staff for about a year and a half. I think we've gone through one election, from what I gather, in 2008. That did not pass. At that point, I think there was no dollar amount on the ballot.
Right, I recall that, yes.
Yep. This particular one could very easily knock us out as a fire department. Some people have said, as far as our business being extinguished, it would be considered legally illegal for such things to happen. But that's not really the route we want to take. We don't want to get in the legality of, lawsuits and that sort of stuff.
You're about to be bludgeoned by a very large company using the arm of government to get their way and gain advantage. Normally, you would be competing with another business and you would have to offer a better service or a better price. Sure. Or something like that. But this is something entirely different. Sure.
I've heard the terms request for quote and different things or proposal. I don't think it will come to that. I don't think there will be an RFQ or anything after if this were to pass. I think it would be directly awarded to rural metro. But then again, it is a matter of who's elected on this board. I cannot answer a lot of questions because it's those people on the board who are elected who are going to come up with it. There are different sorts of people on that ballot, I'm sure you're aware of,
yes,
that feel differently towards it. So even that could get a little bit muddy. That could muddy the waters depending on who's elected.
Yes. It seems likely to me, although I don't have a crystal ball, but if they're voting for the district, they'd likely vote for the recommendations that are on all the signs.
Sure.
That
you would think, yeah.
Right, and so you and I both were on the committee that brought this proposal to the May ballot. I don't really remember you much there because I think you probably came in later than I did, but it was apparent to me from the get-go that rural metro had a large representation on the panel, either as just an advisory role, but also former rural metro employees or just part of the firefighting brotherhood were represented on this committee, and it seemed quite clear to me from the outset that County Fire was the bad guy, rural metro is the good guy.
Sure.
Or at least that's how it was characterized.
Yes, and I knew that going into being a part of that committee. Now, some of that, I want to make it clear, and I try to with most of our customers or people within the community. Rightfully so, historically, our company and companies before us, fire departments, were not really meeting a very good standard. They weren't. They were not putting on the typical fire department face that they should have been doing. We have since changed and done a 180-degree turn. We, in that committee, Dave Matthews, Austin Prince, put together some standards. I agreed with those standards, and I still do. The idea of having standards on a fire department is a must, and NFPA is basically a guideline, not rules or regulations like OSHA, but a guideline that we follow. And so that's what I wanted. I was ready to adopt those things. I was ready to get them in place, and it just never did happen. I was kind of the black sheep within the group because of history, because of what went on with county fire department, in the field, butting heads with rural metro or anybody else, but also fire departments before us creating a bad name. And rightfully so, rural metro is a credible fire department.
No
and
question.
if anything, they've been a model for us on the firefighting level and emergency service level or all hazard level. When it comes to the corporate decisions that are made, I have opted to take a completely different tactic to business than they do. And again, this isn't even a firefighter level, and I don't even know who I would address. AMR, GMR, KKR, whoever it is. We're not out here to strong-arm the community. We're here to help negotiate and provide a service that is credible and worth having.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, and I want to make my own point that I don't have any animosity towards rural metro. I found these people to be very likable people. Yeah. I toured their department over there on Williams Highway, and they showed me around and everything. I'm sure they're quite competent at what they do. The issue comes down to choice. Now, you referred me to an article in Reason magazine from some time ago that depicts a young Phil Turnbull of Valley Fire, now Rural Metro, in the exact same circumstance that you are now in, sure, and taking the same point of view that you now take.
Sure. It is a bit ironic reading that. Like you said, it was some time ago, but that's a younger fire chief who is also a businessman trying to keep his business afloat, grow it, train firefighters, and serve the community. If we had gone back in time and talked to the same chief, I think right now we would be in a very different position. But with where we're at in the community and the fact that money is money and fire service is fire service, unfortunately a lot of that money drives the fire service now, and you'll see it in different districts, municipalities, all across the country, where we are privately owned. The fire engines are in the owner's name, and all our equipment we got to go get ourselves, and everything comes from the subscription that we get on a yearly basis. And that's what Phil Turnbull and Valley Fire back in the day had to deal with at the same time. And that's where their prices would get more and more and more because they had a lot more overhead. We've tried to be smart with our money as a privately owned fire department and keep a base level rate for our subscribers and still be able to pay adequately enough and also invest in the company. I'm not sure what exactly is driving this in totality, because again, I know Rural Metro wants it, and Phil Turnbull has proposed it and wants it as well. But then again, you have a corporate level that's probably putting money into campaigning and pushing it further and further. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes at that
Yes.
level, but
And they likely have tentacles and influence unseen by the general public in this whole circumstance. Who knows who they have influence with inside governments that make certain things happen that is to their benefit.
sure, absolutely. Because of the age of or let's say Valley Fire, then rural metro, a lot of firefighters, a lot of families, a lot of people were trained or brought up through a rural metro. And they have, the fire service is goofy. There's a lot of allegiance to it. So you'll see off-duty firefighters wearing stuff and fire this, fire that. And what it is, it's whether it's allegiance to the fire community as a whole or their department, you end up becoming this little gang of firefighters who have declared their allegiance to one specific thing or one department, and you don't want to veer away from that. And you find it on scene all the time, where whether they're not getting along or lack of communication or fire versus law enforcement, it's really kind of a goofy scenario. Instead of being able to communicate and work through your problems, now one of the problems we have come up against is the lack of mutual aid, which has led to the lack of communication, through Josephine County 911 dispatch and different things. The lack of
this
trainings.
has been going on for many
Sure,
years that I know
absolutely.
of. In 2015, we did a broadcast with Dan Trader and a few other representatives from County Fire in this battle with the county over 911 services. And it appears to still be going on. Hasn't really changed at all.
No, I don't know that I can totally touch on the direct conflict with 911 directly, because it kind of comes back to the Rogue Valley Chiefs Association, their
Yes.
standards, and I could pull them out right now, but those standards are what 911 is saying we need in order to get a contract with 911. A number of big problems with those standards is being all hazard and us being able to provide an emergency medical service when AMR owns rural metro. For us to get our foot in that kind of door probably won't happen. We'll certainly try to.
This speaks to the influence that I was talking about.
Yes.
That there are conflicts there, and
Sure.
and the Rogue Valley Chiefs Association, they are probably being influenced, and that is what's stopping them from cooperating, which stops you guys from being able to share radio services.
Sure.
And things of this nature.
Sure. Now, when we do say Rogue Valley Chiefs Association, that being a nonprofit in itself, I wouldn't say I would lump every chief into that sort of statement. Some of them actually do agree with us. Some of them are very supportive and encouraging and would, in fact, give us mutual aid if it came up. There are those who are leading the Rogue Valley Chiefs Association who tend to steer a lot of their decisions. And so along with that standard of being all hazard or EMS ready, there's also an insurance that they said we've had to have. An insurance of a general liability insurance of $3 million. This is an expensive insurance that would be very costly for us. So if we go out and try to get this and sign a year contract with whichever insurance agency here in town, that's going to really dig into our pockets, and we're still not
By design, if you
Sure.
ask me.
And in turn, we are not promised in any which way to be given this mutual aid if we go do that.
Right.
So
That's a toughie.
it is, and there's a lot of that happens. We can go do it all, and we still have no certainty. And so we're ready to do every little bit of it. And in fact, if this is a no vote, we as a company, we are growing and pouring into our firefighters. We want them to grow it not just as firefighters and emergency medical service providers, but as young men and women. We're pouring into them in the way where if this is a no vote, our company is going to grow. We're ready to pop up new stations. We're ready to provide all hazard service. We've looked into even doing non-emergency medical transport. This is something that we are able to do, which other departments like Rural Metro do not do. And we feel like that would actually help the community as a whole, because AMR has the contract for emergency medical transport.
So, what does this do to your fee structure long term? Does that mean that you're going to need more money from the public ultimately
For non-emergency medical transport?
Well, you were talking about doing all these expansions. Does that ultimately mean that you're going to need to raise the cost of your services?
No, absolutely not. We will right now. We've put a cap on our services at 15 cents per square foot. I could show you my QuickBooks. I have people in there that are at 9 cents a square foot. It's a matter of what they can afford. So for example, we have some people up here off of Pleasant Valley, Russell Road and stuff, who have swimming pools or holding tanks, 3,000. A commercial building over here has a 10,000 gallon tank. We give them quite the discount because of the lack of hydrants.
So you can draft from a pool.
Sure. We can provide water real quick and not have to haul butt over to a hydrant to fill up our water tender. It's on scene and ready to go. So we give them quite the discount, that kind of thing.
I got 20,000 gallons in a pool at home. That would be...
Absolutely. Yeah. So that being said, it fluctuates quite a bit, but we've put a cap on it at 15 cents per square foot. Now, I can't tell you what that what that would be comparable to an assessed value. Some have said that's like 70 to 80 cents, per thousand on the assessed value as far as trying to compare pricing.
I see.
It fluctuates a lot, but it's definitely not up near the $1.50 mark or anything like that. It's much lower.
So you talked about your firefighting family here. When you drive around and you see the signs that say "Thank you, firefighters," and then right underneath they're asking you to vote for the fire district that basically uses government and puts a local business out of business and gives a multinational conglomerate the contract for fire suppression in this district.
Sure. I think anybody, if they have any sort of moral compass, would want to thank a firefighter. That a sign like that, when you're using it politically, can be a little bit deceptive.
I think it's wholly deceptive.
Yes.
You're taking the goodwill that people have towards the firefighters. I live in the Taylor Creek area there, in the Riverbanks, Taylor Creek area. There was a big fire going on there a couple of years ago. And we were all very happy that the firefighters were there, and we have this natural, affinity for them. And I think it's a manipulation to take that emotion and try to use it to get people to vote for a fire district that has nothing to do with thanking firefighters.
Sure.
Or benefit for firefighters.
Yes, I agree. I think if it passes, we'll find out soon enough the benefits, or who in turn is benefiting from that $1.74. I personally believe, and had heard from others, that $1.74 is not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to keep the fire services going the way they are at status quo right now. Much more money will need to be pumped into it. So unfortunately, I think that it won't help your average firefighter. I think that they need more money to up their pay, to man more stations, to provide bigger and better equipment. And us as a fire department, to see a sign like that is obviously very discouraging, because you're thanking firefighters in turn asking them to put us out of business. So we got 18 people on staff who we would have to lay off.
Who are firefighters too, by the way.
Sure.
Yes.
Firefighters or people who love firefighters. You know, our bookkeeper here, her husband just retired from law enforcement. She just loves to provide service for the firefighting community. And so she helps us out. She bends over backwards. Well, we would have to lay her off. This is something that people don't necessarily know or take into regard. Since this has gone on, it's been very interesting because as much as we don't want this happening and we don't want this to pass, it's also been good publicity for us because a lot of people, frankly, didn't know we existed. And rightfully so. We're tucked away. We keep to ourselves. We're not really about campaigning and promoting and advertising, and we're not really good at it. We just want to be really good firefighters. So far it's been, we're going to find out what's about to happen, but it's been okay in the ways I've been able to answer a lot of phone calls and field questions, people coming in. That has helped us just to show recognition that we exist and that we have a plan to expand. But now it's up to the Josephine County to make a decision on whether or not basically they want to keep us around
Right.
and put this permanent tax into place.
Exactly. Now, you had mentioned when we spoke before that there was a fire district in the Central Point area that started out at a certain price and then later. Could you reiterate that again, please?
Sure. From what I gathered, it started at like $1.98 some years ago, and it has slowly made its way up, and now it's at $3.10 per thousand.
Well, hang on just a second. So they passed a fire district at $1.98, and then it somehow crept up. How does that work?
Sure. So if it's at, let's say, the $1.74, $1.98, whatever it is, the fire industry has got to survive and serve at a certain capacity. When it cannot, automatically that whatever it's locked in at is going to be raised by 3% per year. If that in itself is not enough, a levy has to be put out to the community as a whole to ask for more money. We've seen it with the sheriff's office. We've seen it with different things.
So is that what happened in this particular case?
Yes.
And did that take place with one levy or multiples?
Honestly, I'm not sure how many. A lot of this is just information that's been given to me.
I'm just trying to give people an idea of what to possibly expect down the road if, a couple years down the road they say this is not enough money.
Yes. There's no way around it. The $1.74 is going to go up considerably. Whether we talk 5 years or 10 years, 5 years it's going to go up considerably.
Right.
There are guys like Herman Bertrigger or you talk with the Connie at the assessor's office. They'll give you specifics as to what happens over time, your assessed value, and any improvements in thereafter.
Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's discuss that for a second. The $1.74, their rural metro's stated rate right now is $1.94, and they're pitching this at $1.74. If you run the numbers at a 3% increase, now just to lay the groundwork, I've been here almost 20 years. In 20 years, the price of fire service has come down. It was very near $1,000 when I first moved here, and now it's in the 500 range for the exact same service. And I'm sure that Rural Metro would even tell you that they are more capable now than they were 20 years ago. Certainly. So you're going to have the baked into the cake, 3% annual increase that takes place with the mandated 3% annual bump in property taxes. Mm-hmm. So the $1.74, which is they're selling to you as a discount, in 4 years goes away totally, and on year 5 you're paying more than the $1.94, and it keeps going up 3% in perpetuity. And this does not even take into consideration the levies that you suggested may take place, as did with this other fire company in Central Point. Also, potential bonds for acquisition of new venues and equipment. These are all possibilities as well. So you had mentioned to me that your cost for service to the end user may even be cut as far as half if you're able to take your plan to fruition.
Absolutely. Yeah, we gauge our prices not necessarily economically or by assessed value, but by square footage in the individual occupying that home. We got a lot of older retired people in the community, fixed incomes. They can't have their taxes and or bills fluctuating so much. And so we want to work with them. We want to, and granted, a lot of people in the community, I mean, the number 30% has been thrown around. 30% of Josephine County's population is unprotected. If we could get to a position where we had access to all of those Josephine County residents, we would like to provide service for those 30%. And if it was in a sort of a deal where we just got them on the books on a much lesser cost, and it gradually went up and caught up with everybody else, whatever it is, we would find a plan to do it. We would like to see everybody covered, not just because we want to make the money, obviously we need income, but for the sake of you being covered and your neighbor being covered. I personally like the idea, as somebody living out in the county, to have options, to have choices, to have fire coverage or not have fire coverage. If you choose not to have fire coverage, that is your prerogative. There are consequences if there is a fire. I'm not even talking about us billing you for whatever our services are. I'm talking about your house burning down and you not having the right insurance to replace it or protect it or whatever comes along with it. That is their decision. But at the same time, we would like to reason with those individuals, those occupying those homes, that we do want to cover you. Let's talk about what you can afford at that point.
Right. And see, that's that competition. If you were the beneficiary of the monopoly, you wouldn't be offering that to people because they would be mandated to pay you a certain amount. Right now, if you go to rural metro and you say, hey, you know what, the amount that you want to charge me is too much. I can't afford it. They will offer you a lesser price.
Sure.
I know this for a fact. My neighbor did it with them. I've had this experience with them. And all of that goes away when you eliminate competition. It's funny, you had referenced to me an article featuring Phil Turnbull of Valley Fire from many years ago, touting the benefit to service and cost to the citizens of Josephine County by having competition.
Yeah, that's why their prices are as low as they are. There's no doubt. Now, we are only occupying and serving the North Valley. I don't know about the South Valley. If this is a no vote, we are going to get over there and find out. But they could very well be all at $1.94 and not have that option to go less than. I don't know because we're not over there. But if we get over there, then those prices are going to have to come down. Anything from 199 south, so Williams Highway, Clover Lawn,
and that's part of this unprotected district they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Absolutely,
understood.
So what I'm saying is, if this is a no vote, the residents on that side are going to realize real soon that we are going to offer them this same service for even a much, much lesser cost. But if it passes, they will not have that option.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then there's another topic to discuss, and that is KKR. KKR, so it appears, is a multinational corporation with over $500 billion in assets. And, you know, people often, I mean, it's a story, a theme that you might see in a movie, that here's this, you know, evil corporation from outside wants to invade and shut down the little business somewhere, and then of course the hero fights back against them and wins.
Sure.
This is that circumstance in real life, is it not?
Yes. I mean, it's a David and Goliath sort of story. The KKR organization is so much bigger than we can wrap our head around when you're talking about billions of dollars. And for them to be able to monopolize something like this is very simple for them because they can throw money at it. The fact that so KKR is an American-based investment firm that's gotten very, very big since the 70s. They have gone out with their feelers and gotten outside investors to invest in their company. They're worth clear to $230 billion because of these investments. A lot of these investments being international from like China. You can see it from Beijing, from Shanghai. You can see it even in Japan with Tokyo. It's a smart move, I suppose, on their part. I don't know enough about that.
But this is taking place not just here in our county, but this is happening all over the United States, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We are no doubt one of the last. We're one of the last to be really taken over, you know. And we're talking about big government and bureaucracy that will come in and dictate what you do, the way you spend your money, what sort of equipment you can or can't get, because that a lot of that drives districts and municipalities to get into a position where they want, because they just want the handout from the state. They'll say, well, we want to become a district because we want to get free grants. We want to get funding from them. We want to. In turn, what happens is the state will become your crutch. So what happens when the state has problems? What happens when economically something's going wrong and that crutch gets pulled out from underneath you, and now you're stuck because the state's having problems instead of you being self-sustained and being able to fend for yourself.
Right.
So,
but I'm guessing even this multi-billion-dollar international corporation is still going to pursue those grants and funding that they can get to subsidize their circumstance.
Oh, of course. That's probably how they became billionaires. You know, they save their pennies and they look for free things, and that's just how it works. And I understand. I'm not a businessman, but I own a home and pay a mortgage, and we just bought another home to rent out, and I know what it means as the American dream. Everybody wants the American dream. You want to make enough money to go have fun.
Right.
Basically, right?
That's
right. Sometimes you have to fight specific things or for long periods of time and be uncomfortable in doing it to fight for what's right, or ethics and integrity. Now, when it comes to us in rural metro, I think that we are on the same level when it comes to our outlook on a service that's provided across the board for the Josephine County. We both want the same thing for them. Like I said, they've been a model for us. I know Phil has built up a really good organization, starting at Valley Fire and going to where he is. It's when these big business owners that come in waving lots of money around that tend to entice and steer our integrity or lack thereof. We don't want to do that. We're not going to sell out to GMR. We're not going to tuck tail and run. We're not going to stop fighting. We want to stay here and fight for the residents of Josephine County. If this does pass, we will not be given that opportunity.
Well, listen, I want to thank you very much for taking the time with me. Keep that money local, people. Vote no.